big thank you to the crew of Pop-Kultur Berlin for putting this together and for being so good with the organization. Great. So, my name is Jovanka. I'm a songwriter with BMG. I'm an artist profiler. And I leave it here because we only have 1 hour, a bit over 1 hour, and this should be about you. About today. So this course is about career mapping, and I had a look in some of your sites, and obviously there are as many careers in this room as there are people, so there's no such thing as like one map. It all depends on like finding your tools on what suits you. But there are still a lot of things to talk about. And I thought, how can this be in a way that you get the most out of it? So there will be no brain candy, no beautiful projections, no handouts, because they end up in the garbage can anyway. I would ask you to take notes, and with your hand, like put your mobile away. That's really important, because you should only write down what resonates with you. This cannot fit for everybody. Just write down what suits you, what resonates, and forget the rest. Are you ready, dears? Yeah. So, first, I have some questions to get like a little bit of an overview. Who of you can make a living from your working in the music industry yet? Okay, there are some, that's good. Who of you wants to make a living of your... That's more. Yes. Who of you works with major companies? In any field, like, right, you have to do with that, yeah. Who of you wants to work with major companies, like a major publishing or record or whatever? Okay, again, more. Who is doing it all DIY? That's the most. Good. So, as I said, there's no such thing as one map, because it depends on very like basic things to start with. Like, what kind of an animal are you under pressure? Are you one of those who play dead? Or are you one of those who take a flight? Or are you one of those who attack? And all of these things can be a tool. All of these things you can use. But if you're not aware of it, it will play you, and it will definitely work against you. Because that is like how you work when stress happens, when something unexpected is crashing at you. So this is one of the things why we have to talk about kind of basic things. I will start with one little thingy I will write down. And we come to another diagram later. But this is something you can do alone or in a one-on-one session. So this does not work with a big group, but it's interesting, maybe for you. So, no Easter eggs. Or maybe? All right, this is number one. It's the goal thing. very basic. This is number 2. This is the start. God, this thing is nicely wobbly. And I call it the resource inventory. We come to that later. And this is your pit stop. So, I'm coming to that. The goal is where you write down, and it all depends, like every tool is just as good as you use it, obviously, and it all depends on how honest you are with yourself. One other thing that's important to know about this one is it needs to be adjusted while you go. So as a map, like life is kind of a moving bitch sometimes, but it's very good to have like a basic structure anyway. So the goal is where you write down, obviously, where do you want to be in 1 year. I like the 1 year thing because you can still kind of see it. So in 1 year from now, what do you want to have achieved, and how, and that's really important, how do you want your work situation to look like? Like, how do you imagine yourself with your team? Like, really get your inner movie going for that one. That's a nice one. So, a general good thing is to, if you have these things, always question. Like, if you have here, I want to be on the radio. Ask yourself, why? And what do I mean with that? Like, do you listen to radio? What channels are you talking about? What do you mean with it? And why? And that is quite interesting, because sometimes after you question yourself enough, the answer will be something else. And then there is an answer, and then it's the best thing to do is to question that again. So you have, I want to be on chart radio, blah, 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 there and there. And then to ask you, why? It is interesting because, and again, if you write it down, not in your head, if you do this at home or in a one-on-one session, if you write it down, there are surprises. That's the only thing I can promise. So the first thing, the second bubble here is the resource inventory. That's interesting because here you really have to be honest. Like, where are you now? What do you have on your pro sites? What are your weak spots? Like paperwork or networking. What are your strong spots? Like paperwork or networking. What do you need? What do you need in order to, what do you, at this point, you think you need for reaching your goal? Like contacts, promo, money, whatever. And who do you know and who do you think you need to get to know? Again, written down, it's kind of interesting because you have it in front of you. And the most important thing is, what can I do? What can I do? Not what I need, what can I do right now? Actually on a daily basis and for 1 year. What can I keep up? What do I need to keep up? And what do I need to get better in? As I said, it's you will adjust these things. So number 3 is the pit stop, and that's the place where you kind of think, well, where did I get? What do I have to adjust? Is this timing still realistic? Maybe my goal has even changed a little bit. This thing works for you and not the other way around. So it's it should help you and not restrict you. Also, and that is important, this is the point where you start from this point to count down. Like, for example, this is the point where you want to have a record release. You have to start here with certain things. You still have to keep up things from here, but you also have to count backwards and say, okay, I have to get my social media stuff in order. There needs to be traffic. Who do I need for that? What can I do? All these things again. What else do I know? And it's always good to check the goals. What does it take in what order? Counting backwards, it's a very helpful tool, especially with releases, but also like when you start a company or whatever. Yes. Are there... Oh, and another thing that's quite important. Again, it depends on what type of person you are. Some people celebrate their achievements all the time. Some people cannot at all. They always beat themselves up. So this is a very important point, to celebrate what you have achieved, to actually make it césure and say, well, I actually did something already. That's good information to the body, again. Yes, are there any questions about that? Otherwise, yeah, please.
I think some of us know the goal, but maybe we don't know the steps. Sometimes of the real steps that we have to take to get there.
What is the question?
What are the steps, basically? Not what are the steps, but how do we get to know which the steps are? Like, I think for many of us, there's a thing called the industry of music, and we have the idea that maybe we have to know someone to get there. But
these are the little steps, and this is what I said, like this is the basic structure. By actually writing it down and to be very good here, like be very honest here, and to check your resources, you might find out that you know more people than you think. But you really have to sit down and ask yourself, do I know someone who could know someone, if it's about contacts, for example? So, as I said, this is different for everyone. So this is just about structure, but we're coming to more concrete things very soon after I erase this. So any more questions? Did this answer anything? We go on, and I hope some of that will be answered. Any more questions? No? Good. Funky sponge. La la la. So, there's one thing to you. So even if it looks like just a very broad idea, the minute you actually work on it and sit down and write these things down, and the minute, for example, you find out in place 2, place 1, 2, what you have to work on every day, things will come your way while you're going. This is where you have to be so honest with yourself, like where are your shortcomings too, also what you have. So a lot of answers will come on the way. Okay, now this, I like this. Why, how, what? This is your creative core. This is the why. This is why This is why these are only existing. Like, this is your music or your company, your creative urge, your whatever. This is very important and needs to be protected. This is the what. No, this is the how, actually. How are you dealing with it? Like, this is very interesting, the second one. This second circle is, I call it like your trickle up circle. This like time management. How do you work with your time? How do you build a team? This is like, how do you deal with the why before you reach out, before you go into communication? We talk about more later. So this is very important. And this is the what and whom to. It sounds very weird, but okay, let's get to this thing. Everybody has different like difficulties or whatever. What I hear a lot is like, I don't have enough time, or the organization is in the way of my creativity, or I'm still waiting for this to go on. Like, this waiting situation can really bleed you out. So how are you dealing with the conflicts, and how are you dealing with your work? I'm a big fan of structure, because structure gives you freedom. If you work totally, especially when you don't have time, to be clear about time slots that you give yourself. One thing that I found out that is good for almost everybody is weekly one date with yourself, and take it as seriously as an appointment with the dentist or a flight to holiday. So if you can't make it to your date with yourself, be sure to make another date with yourself. And that date should be there to, it's like a garden with a fence. And this is the point where you sit down, where you check like what has been achieved last week, for example, what went wrong, what went good, kind of a dual fix. And again, I would recommend to do it with a hand, because it's a wonderful feeling to check things off the list. It really feels so good to cross something out physically. So to talk about like this general things in the middle, and this might help there a little bit too. Like, discipline means something else for everybody else. So to find out where you need it. Like, some people tend to self-pity or excuses. What? Some people need to or tend to be a workaholic, so that means discipline for a workaholic means to actually build in active breaks. Discipline for someone who's gossiping a lot means to work on that. So if you had a look at the thing before, this makes sense, because you can always check and recheck and be nice, because this is also the protection zone for your core. Like, if things are always getting in the way, or if maybe you tend to, what's the nice word, procrastination or something? So I see all this, lose all the words that put a distance between you and your self-responsibility. Name it, don't blame it. Like, it is wasting of lifetime. So there are some of these words that just sound nice, or if you don't question it, like, I don't have time, then check how much are you on the phone, really simple, or how much are you caught up in the bullshit of other people. That's another thing. Discipline can also mean don't get entangled, and if, know or remind yourself. A good, like this one date with yourself is also good to check, like, did I get drawn into a system where I, for example, where's the email back and forth and I keep answering? That's your lifetime you're wasting. You don't want to do that. So it's this recheck with yourself. And I find it useful to always go with reward versus punishment. It's like it's also a waste of time to say, oh, last week I really messed it up. Don't waste time with that. What discipline always means is, yes, be honest with yourself, but without judging. Sounds really easy. I don't find that so easy. We can only get better. And if you, now more concrete, if you think like, what are the right questions? She's talking all the time about all these questions you should ask yourself. It's one thing, again, it's something else for everybody else, but a good key is to remember this beautiful letter W. Yes, because it's the why, it's the when, the who, and always what can I do about it. So whenever you think, for example, you wait and you're in a weird situation, don't wait. What can I do about it? Like, for example, for some people, hard work or stress is very hard. For some people, a waiting situation where you don't get feedback, where your release got delayed, whatever, it's killing these people. Can be very awful. So if you know it and if you name it and it's, okay, this is a time to study. I give myself this 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever you have. What can I do within this time? Maybe I didn't see my friends enough or whatever. This is actually a time gift. And it's very important. That's a kind of a basic thing too. Do not react, act. And it's just a little thing in the brain, but it does a big difference, even in very unpleasant work situations or whatever, or when the communication via whatever, anything. Just try to remember, act and don't react, because it takes the control. We don't ever have control anyway, but the illusion of control, it takes it out of your hand. We don't want that. Yes. Then there's the magic C, and that's continuity or persistence, but that doesn't sound so nice. So it's what's really cool and what will really help you is not what you start, but what you can keep up. And a good structure is never what you like. If I have this goal, I will make sport 4 times a week. It doesn't work. And then I feel bad about myself. So only put on your plate what you can actually keep up. And that is something that is doing beautiful things, because suddenly you feel, and it's growing, that you can rely on yourself. And you're less stressed in situations that seem to be stressful, because you know that you can rely on yourself. Kind of important. And, well, that's another thing that's easy to say, and but it's good. No excuses. Whenever you think it happened, why, or because someone else, blah, blah, blah. Shit happens, and it's not all your fault, but there's no excuse to behave like shit yourself or to do nothing or whatever. And excuses feel really nice in the moment you do it, and it always is like taking money from your own Portokasse, kind of. Yeah, name it, don't blame it. We had that. So you can also, like, for example, in a waiting situation, it's like you can, if you sit down and you know this is my garden, you can say, is there any loose part in this that I could actually move? No? Okay, then do something else. But to keep being aware is a helpful thing. Yes. So, any questions about this? Good. So we come to ring 3. And yeah? Yes, please.
Could you break down things you said in the last, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes into like 3 sentences? Because you gave us, I think maybe 20 ideas or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't see the structure of the.
Okay. We do it. We do it. I try to be a little bit more specific because his question was like the opposite. Like, what does it really mean? You know? But yes. I make the third ring really short, and then we skip right away to the checklist of rules, tools, and fools. Thanks. So this is the communication. But this was kind of clear, I hope. This is the core. This is kind of clear. Should be. So this is the communication thing. Again, if this is cleared and if this feels good, this is much easier too. It's about, like, for example, emails or cold contacts or communication, like some basic things that can be helpful. Whenever you reach out to someone and you want something or you want to deepen a contact, make a list before. What do you have to offer? Everyone likes to talk to people who have something to offer. That's something human. So if you call someone or you write to someone and it's a lot about, like, I would like this and I want this and would you do this for me, it doesn't work so good. But if you say, I have this and I would love to have you in my team, that helps. So anyway, especially when you don't know these people, be short and be on point. Like in a mail, for example, and I'm saying this because I got a lot of emails that are really long and they start with what people do not want. That is not helpful. So what's nice is to say who you are, why you are addressing them, like especially them. People like to know why them, because there's so many others. A real compliment cannot hurt if it's real. What are you doing? And again, what do you have to offer? And another just basic trick is whenever you write an email and you want a reply, include a question, because people are programmed to answer questions. And if I don't know you, I just might, so, yeah. Yeah?
For this whole diagram that we're looking at, this is something that you do for many of the things encompassed in the why thing that you do, right?
Yes.
So I would say, like, the why of I make music.
Yeah.
Part of making music is to actually try to make something creative. Part of it is selling it. All of these have different whys and different hows and different whats.
Totally right. And this is the thing. Like for him, it's like too many details right now. And for you, it's too, of course, there are these steps. That's why I started with the first thing. You find answers on the way by asking yourself the crucial questions. but you really have to do it. It's like there's no one key. You have to sit down and you have to ask, like in this resource invention, if you're really good here, a lot of questions will be answered on the way. And again, this first diagram, you have to do alone, adjust, you have to be flexible about it, or you have to do it with a partner, in a one-on-one session. That sometimes helps too. And obviously there are so many different questions. But to write down your questions for your thing, to find the answers and to then question your answer, that's a tool. I cannot tell you what questions you have because I don't know you, but I can tell you writing your questions down and to question your answers is a good thing. It's helpful. Yes, like this thing was the untangling. Oh, one more thing, because of the tone, and that obviously varies again and again. But being over-agreeable does not earn you respect, and this goes to a lot of women I've worked with, and I've just seen this. It's like, don't add smileys, and you can be very nice. Nice is totally good, but keep it short. You can be nice, even more friendly later on, but be short. And on the other hand, cool is not cool. If you would like to work with someone and you come around like, you know, it's not cool. Now we jump to the little thingy. Oh, one more little nice thing. How much time do we still have? Really cool. Well, it's obvious. So this is chaos because you are artists, we are artists, whatever. Chaos, and this is structure. Struktur, yeah, that's enough. And this is something really personal for everybody, but to be an artist or to push something forward in the creative business, it's always a dance with chaos and structure. And I've worked with people who are very structured, and suddenly all the chaos that you need to actually come up with brilliant things left the room. And I've seen that many times. That's why I'm saying that. All the other way around, and that's the cliche. People who are very creative and la 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 la, and don't get a structure in it, and then probably they blame the society. Yeah. So what I suggest is disciplined playfulness. Yeah. And that is something that might take training over a couple of years, but this disciplined playfulness to what I said, like if you have a date with yourself and you have a space and it's like you didn't work just on looking at the dreams you wrote down or whatever. This date with yourself is good for this. It's only there for you. If you have a problem with paperwork piling up or like mails piling up, that's not for that date. That is an extra date. And this is, I call that like the business bubble or whatever, when you can manage to have one day which is only there for things that fell off the plate the last week. Sounds very simple, but it's very useful because you don't have this bad conscience all the week. Oh, I didn't answer, la 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 la, and I didn't do this, and na, because you have this bubble, and that is only there for doing all the not so pleasant things, but just to check them off. So that's another date. I would suggest that, yes, and if possible on a regular basis, like for example, it's Monday, the first half or whatever. That is melting the mountain of stress. It's like not so many programs are running on your computer all the time. Yeah. So we come, as requested, to the checklist. Rules. And yeah, rules sounds awful. Be reliable. Sounds very, very, very simple, but usually people are very reliable as long as they want something, and as soon as someone else wants something, they are not as reliable anymore, like they don't answer mails and blah, blah, blah. You will meet people twice, and even if not, it's like be as reliable as you want to be treated, and that's not a karma message, that's really helpful. We had that, act, don't react, especially if people pull you into their bullshit, don't go for that. Name it, don't blame it, so no excuses. Don't believe the hype, like sometimes things become like really, there's a momentum to it. And everybody says, this is going to get gold, or this is, all the investors are just waiting for you, or blah, 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 blah. So if it's beautiful to be happy about it, but if you believe it, the fall, if it's not happening, is just sucking energy. So to find a balance between being happy about these things, but to still say, yes, but the thing I can rely on is my work, is my team, is how I am with my team. That helps, because if, for example, this happens in a band or in a production, in a producer group or whatever, and you're totally wound up and then it doesn't happen, there comes this exhaustion phase, and what comes then is that people turn against each other. And I've seen that in many bands, especially bands who work with major companies, because delays and blown up promises or whatever, it can happen. So take the sweets, but don't believe the hype. Also the other way around, if a company is very disappointed with you, that's their fucking problem. If you did your work, you did good. And again, it sounds really easy, but it's something it's good to remind yourself of. One more thing, ask before you act. For some of you, it might be very obvious. It's not so obvious, because people act on reflex, especially when you're the kind of animal that likes to attack. So you have a contract on your table, and usually the companies say this has to be very quick now, even though they might not answer for half a year sometimes, but still it has to be very, very quick. Don't get under pressure, and ask before you ask them. It's like it can be a problem if there's a misunderstanding or you're unsure, and you get at the person who confronts you with it with long emails of questions. It's just making it complicated, and if the mood is bad at some point, you don't get out of it anymore. So say, I need time, and then talk to people, ask people. Again, if you're this attacking kind of person, if you are emotional, it's not someone who writes you bullshit mails, but you are just, and you want to write this mail because something really sucks. Write that mail, but don't send it in. So write it and at least sleep 1 or 2 nights and then find out what the fact in it is. Sounds very simple. It's not all the time. Yes, be prepared. This is obvious, but especially because things change so much and we are not in control and things are wobbly and all that. to be well prepared is great. It gives you freedom to improvise. Know what you're offering. We had that too. But it's so beautiful. Like if you remind yourself, you can even remind yourself every week in your date with yourself, what do you actually have to offer? If you make music, if you have a company, it's, I know then when people get really into this like work mode, they sometimes forget. They forget the why, the core, or they forget what they have to offer. They remember what they need, what they don't have, whatever. But it's beautiful to know that you actually have to give something, and obviously something beautiful. Yes, and know the rules you break. Because obviously there are a lot of rules, and in every scene and in every business there are other rules, and I'm a friend of breaking rules, but you have to know what rules you break. Like, again, be informed, do all that crap before you run into a weird situation. Tools. Very simple things. Again, the date with yourself, the mountain melting business bubble, the question your answers, the cut the pancake. We did not have that yet. If you're someone who has a very hard time to start on things, or a very hard time to finish things, it's again, people are so different, or whatever, and then it's this thing you just do not touch because it's too big and too ugly and whatever, smells funny. So if you cut it in 3 and you say, today all I will do is to prepare the work, even if it's like tax preparation or whatever. So and make sure you stop after that. You put all things out, you find the links you want to research. So you're not, that's another good thing, you're not, try to act as your best employee and not as your boss. If you're a freelancer, you're in a way both, but if you're your best employee, it's nice because you work for yourself. It's good. Yes, do all the preparation work and stop. And then the next day, or maybe even next week, sit at this beautiful site where you know, oh, everything is prepared, go for it. And then in the last thing, finish. All you have to do is finish. And for some reason, that is so much easier to address these ugly things. Obviously, nice habit forming. This goes in this continuity thing, because everything we have to debate again and again about are very heavy. And if you just get used to things, even little things, they don't eat up any more space. They just come, they just go. They just work for you. And you have to find out, obviously, what a good habit for you would be. If it's, I want to do sport, I want to do one social thing a week, I want to, whatever. I want to write down one synopsis a week, little things. The more often you do them, if you do them regularly, the easier they come. Actually, for example, with sport, it's not exactly the case. It's not getting easier, but the debate about starting is shortening. So you get the call, I will do this today, and then me. No, stop talking. We go now. It works. It does. Yes. And now comes the very last thing, obviously, the fools. this is my belief. We are fools if we think success or whatever we work on comes easy, or even more foolish, it will stay easy. We're even more fools if we think it has to be hard, because it does not have to be hard. Joy is the one source that you have to protect, because that's filling up itself. Yes, joy is the one source that will refill itself. So even if you think you're very efficient and you work very, very hard and more, the joy is like leaving the room and you won't even notice, because you just want to get things done. But if that is gone, if you're at some point sitting there and you forgot what do I have to offer, it's not fun anymore. Especially when you're building up your own business, there will be 1 year will not be enough. It's a long time. So joy is your rocket fuel. You gotta make sure that it's there for you, and you have to treat it nicely. Yes. Was that answering? Yes. Good. Okay. Rules are the first ones. Tools is like how you can get a grip on it, maybe. And fools is, and this is my belief, is that it will all come easy, that it has to be hard, that we can do this alone. Like some people, especially when they have bad experience, they draw back and say, well, I don't delegate anymore because it does not work. I do it all myself. It does not work. You have to train to delegate, find good partners, check what's your own fear, check where's the problem. Again, the why question, the W questions. Yes, and the last thing, obviously, if we ever think we know enough, because even if we are really fluent in whatever we are, like listen to feedback. Definitely listen to constructive feedback. That's the best thing that can happen. If someone actually takes the effort to be critical with you, that's so valuable. And that does not mean take like fearful, these things. You can train that, find where it rings a bell. And sometimes it rings a bell in places where you don't want that. It's like, oh shit, yes, that could be true. But that's so good, because all the nice people will only tell you when it's good. And if someone actually comes up to you and say, hey, this, or how did you mean this, or whatever, that's the most valuable thing. Yeah. So that is it. I thank you. Nice. Beautiful.